Greetings and salutations. It's currently 12:14 in the morning. I just got back from photographing a concert. I'm a concert photographer in the North Carolina area, and because it's my first show that I photographed this year, I thought it'd be fun to showcase my start to end process of photo editing, from getting to the show, taking the pics, and editing them and releasing. Before going into the editing process, let's kind of talk about how I got here. So I shoot mostly under publications. I don't tour and I don't do a lot of client work anymore. I kind of just do it on my own speed because I am a working woman. When I shoot under these publications, I reach out to artist management, be like, hey girl, I want to shoot your show and promote it at my publication. Can you get me in for free? And they're like, yeah girl, here's a pass, here's a ticket. I go to the show, I shoot my shit. Here's evidence of me being there 2 hours ago. And then based on my publication, I shoot under 3. Based on the publication that I'm working with, I either get 3 days or a week to get the final product out. And that's the gallery of photos and the written blurb that comes with it. As it's the night of, at the show, I'll shoot my shit. I have an SD card to phone converter thing, and sometimes if I'm at the show, I'll try to edit a few things to post while I'm there, but usually none of the magic happens until I get home that night. Before I go to bed, I'll try to pick out my selection of photos that night. So I took on one of my cameras alone, because I shoot with 2 cameras, I had 2,400 pictures on it. So obviously I can't send, for this publication specifically that I shot with tonight, they request around 8 to 13. Usually I send more because I am really bad at making decisions. I'll go into my photos. Hello to my computer screen. Although there are over 2,000 pictures, it honestly isn't that hard to pick out my favorites. One, because a lot of them are blurry. Number 1, I shoot everything manual. The reason for this is because if I were to shoot on automatic, everything at concerts moves at such a fast pace that if I were to wait for my camera to focus for every single shot, I would miss so many things. So for that reason, I would rather just shoot manually, and I can adjust it as I go. So you can see me working through. If I like one, I'll flag it and tag it to look at it later. When they first come on, it's a little bit dark, and I'm understanding how exposed it is. You can see here, I had it a little bit overexposed. So I probably won't pick something like this. However, good to see kind of at the beginning when the band first comes on, it's impossible to tell what you're going to be working with unless you've seen the show before. So you can see me adjust my camera settings throughout. So the band that I shot tonight was The Wildlife. They're an independent pop rock indie band. I've shot them before. I've seen them live quite a few times, and I always know they always put on a good show, have such incredible lighting, such good stage presence. It's very easy to photograph them, I've learned. This is going to take me a minute, so I think I'm going to just fast forward and go through all of this. Okay, so I wanted to share something that I do at shows. If there's an interesting repetitive movement that I see at the show, I'll take a burst. So my vision for this was, you can see the really pretty rainbow and the singing. So I wanted to do some sort of GIF of that zoom in. So I'm gonna just flag all of them. I like this shot specifically because, so right here, lining the entire front of the stage, there were these, I think they were intimidators, and they were just shooting this rainbow wash throughout the entire front of the stage. And you could also see it if you stood over it, it would cast on the body. You could see it on the ceilings. It was really pretty, and you can see it right there. And I really loved those lights. That is the inspiration. I want to keep this gallery very colorful. This is a fun shot. I like if this was a fun moment. Oh, I like that one too. Okay, so I've made it to the end. I now have, how many did I pull just from this? All right, I pulled 56 images from this SD card. So, these are just my flags. I'm gonna move them to my computer. And then now do the same thing for the other SD card, my camera, my second camera. I shoot with two cameras. There's one main body camera with my favorite lens and then a secondary detail camera. So I'm gonna go do that. And then you'll probably hear from me tomorrow about regular editing. So good night, and let's hope I don't crash the fuck out before I go to bed tonight. Okay. So I did most of this editing at a Super Bowl party, so I couldn't film as I was recording this. My Lightroom process is pretty simple. I bring it in Lightroom first with the intention of bringing it into Photoshop. My three main priorities in Lightroom is fixing the coloring, the lighting, and the cropping. And the editing for each of the pictures is just a repetition of that, and also narrowing down the pictures even more. Like I said earlier, I had like 50 something images picked. You'll see me slowly start to delete stuff off of Lightroom also. Now this is day one of my edits in Lightroom, so a lot of this is bound to change. You'll see that. So I'm going to go through some of the general things that I do for each of my pictures. So for all my pictures, I usually bring up the highlights, I bring up the shadows, I bring up the whites, and turn down the blacks. Now for the highlights, the shadows, and the whites, I use the basic sliders, but for the blacks, I'll use the curves. I'll make a little curve bumping upwards and then bring the blacks slightly down on the curve and then up on the straight line part. At the end, I'm going to share screenshots of some of my edits for my favorite pictures, and I'll show kind of what that looks like. Oh, you can kind of see it right here. No, you can't. All right, never mind. That's most of it. And then also changing the colors for specific pictures. Like, one thing about my work, and you can see this on my Instagram, is I don't like stark blues and purples in my pictures. If I'm going to have a blue light in my picture, I'm going to color grade it to cyan. That's something that I always do. I'll make things brighter and darker as I please. The last general edit I'll go through before we start going through some specific edits is that I'll adjust the clarity, the texture, and the dehazer. I like to turn up the texture and the clarity, but I always like to turn down the dehazer. It keeps the detail in the pictures, but it also has that glowy effect, and I really like my pictures to glow. Now on the second day of edits, I decided to change some things because I feel like my first day of edits, a lot of the colors looked muddy, so I decided to go in and change that. Now I did lose the footage of me fixing a lot of things, but it was just making the blacks blacker, the whites whiter, and changing the saturation of some colors and the placements of those to make them less muddy. Now, something I want to talk about specifically with this picture is a mask. Now, this picture was really nice, but I wanted to add something more visually interesting, so I decided to make just like a regular radial mask on this and turn one side blue. I think it adds a little bit more visual interest, and I love really colorfully interesting pictures, so that's just something that I added. I'll also do masks if, like, I did one here where the subject was a little bit too bright and I had to turn it down. I'll change the colors of some lights if they're like coming in really red, or like there's just a random splotch on the screen or something like that. Now for this picture specifically, I did change the color of the highlights in this picture. However, I used the curves instead of the color grading HSL circle options because I feel like harder to make it muddy, and I feel like with the curves you have a little bit more control of the amount of saturation. And something that I love about Lightroom is that the coloring of a picture completely changes the quality. Like with this picture, I wasn't really certain on it because it was kind of blurry, but as soon as I changed it from blue to pink, I think it has a super different vibe, and it's now one of my favorite pictures, so it really saved a good image from getting trashed. And before I get cut off by the speed up by talking too damn much, I just want to emphasize the importance of efficiency and stuff like this. Obviously, not every preset is going to work for the same picture. Lighting changes all the time for environments like this. However, I highly recommend using presets that you already make yourself. Like, I have a routine when I edit pictures and I know exactly what I'm going to do when I go into Lightroom. Having that sort of look in mind, but also knowing the exact edits and adjustments that you need to make going in is going to save you so much time in a time-sensitive environment like concert photography. And I'm going to get cut off, so I will talk to you later. It is so much later. Today is February 17th. I'm still editing my pictures from the show last weekend. I never recommend waiting this long to submit things to your editor. If your editor doesn't burn you at the stake for doing that, I'm lucky because my editor likes me. We're in the final stretch, and this part is the fun part. The reason why I haven't really touched my picture since is because I had a crazy week at work. If I work in sports, nature calls, and I have games all day, all night. There's nothing really I can do about that, so work always comes first. Being a creative is unfortunately not my full-time job. And then I got sick, so I was laying face down in a ditch for 36 hours. But I'm finally feeling better, so I thought I'd finally finish these puppies and send them out as soon as I can since I'm feeling better. I like to have them done by the end of today. Before I begin, I'd also like to share my 3 beverages that I'm drinking because I am trying to get better. Will these make me feel better? Probably not, but they make my soul happy, so I don't care. I'm drinking my water, an Astro Vibe Celsius. I have, because I haven't really been able to stomach much, my Premier protein shake, coffee. Should I be drinking this much caffeine at once while sick? No, but I'm not taking suggestions. This is just for a healthy soul. Okay, so I have everything, all of my images in Photoshop, and I also have just a regular artboard project called Carousel because for my vision of these pictures, I'd like to make a carousel in which all of the pictures blend together, and it's super cut pasty, overlay, fun, grungy, even though that's not really the style of their music. It's just something that I've been wanting to make recently, and I haven't made a carousel with my pictures in so long, so I don't really do this in any specific order. I kind of just pick pictures that really stand out to me. I have 24 images that I'm working through. I only have to send for this publication max 13, but I like to work with all of these just so I can pick out my tops, and then I can work with the rest just for my personal socials. Okay, so one of my favorite images was this one. This one I kind of wanted to be the star of the show because I love the coloring, I love the framing, and I like that you can see the rainbow lights. So on my hard drive, I have a folder of what I like to call artifacts. These artifacts are little snippets, icons, I have textures, I have overlays, I have everything under the sun in here. I usually like to go in here and find some sort of texture. I also have one on my computer. I think I'm going to use the ones on my computer. It's just a crumbly paper texture, and it just makes everything look so good. Usually I'll go in with either a soft light for a white texture, a linear burn, or a multiply. I'm trying to decide between multiply or soft light. I think I'm going to go with soft light. And then I'm going to bring the opacity way down so you can just see it. It's not obvious that it's there, but it still adds an oomph into some pieces of that image. It makes the blacks look a lot more interesting. Yeah, so I'm going to go with multiply as the blending mode because with soft light, it brings up my blacks too much, and I really wanted, like I said earlier, I wanted the blacks to be really punchy in this set of images. So for those reasons, actually I kind of like divide. Yeah, I'm going with divide. All right. And for now, I'm going to lock that layer. I'm also going to go in, and then the last thing I'll do for an image is I'm going to, on my Mac, this is a Mac command, I'm not sure what it is for Windows, I'm going to hit Shift Command N. It's going to bring me to the new layer tab. I'm going to hit Mode, Overlay, and I'm going to make a 50% gray overlay neutral layer. So it's not a layer that you can see, but any effect that's on this layer is going to affect everything below it. It's basically like an adjustment layer that you can't see. The original image stays the way that it is, so God forbid like something happens to this adjustment layer, you can just delete it and start it over, and the original image is perfect. So first I'm going to go to filter, the tab up top, and filter gallery. Now here I'm going to hit the texturizer filter. I like it when it's really contrasty. You see when it gets smaller, you can kind of see like the square pattern that it runs. So I like to bring it up really big so that's less obvious. And I like a high contrast. However, I try to be careful with this because this plus a paper texture can get kind of a lot. And you can kind of see it like up here. This is really nice. And also on that elbow, I really love that right there. Yeah, that looks really good. Yeah, I fuck with that. Awesome. And then the next thing that I'm going to do is add noise. Now I know there's multiple ways of adding noise. This is just my personal favorite. I'm just going to go filter, noise, add noise. I don't prefer monochromatic noise because I feel like monochromatic noise looks more unintentional. So I choose colored grain because it looks additive and it looks like a stylistic choice. I really like how the grain affected the rainbow texture up here, and I like how you can see it in the blacks of this image. So this I'm really satisfied with. I think it still has that high contrast. It has, I brought back in some of the roughness and you can see it. One thing I'm not super sold on is the light leak, so I think I'm going to keep it hidden for now, and then maybe if another image has a need for it, I'll bring it back. So for now, I'm going to bring all of this into a new group. I'm going to call this 6655 because that is the name of the image up top. Bring everything in here into this group. Leave it closed. Now I'm going to resize the image. Now for each of my publications on their web builders, they request that the images are a certain size. For this one in particular, it has to be at most like 1980. So I'm going to make the height 1980, and if I have the lock on, it'll resize it to be the same dimensions but just a smaller size automatically. I'll hit OK. Now it's a lot smaller. Now, since this is a final image, I'm going to export this as a JPEG just for my final logging for the publication. And then I'm just going to copy this folder and bring it to my carousel over here. So now everything in that folder is there. There. Now if I move one of the layers, I move all the layers. Now I'm just going to make this smaller and leave it there for my carousel later. So now I'm just going to go ahead and go through all of these images and do the same thing. And I'll be right back. I'm back. Something that I do to pictures sometimes, and only when I see fit, if I do this to one picture, I have to do it to a few in the gallery, or it kind of looks like it's not supposed to match. But something that I do to some of the images occasionally is I will make this little glowy effect for them, and I think this picture, because it's a silhouette, has a nice playground for that. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate the image, and on the top one I'm going to hit lighten. On the bottom duplicate, I'm going to go to filter, blur, and I'm going to go to one of the blurs. I think for this one I'm going to do a radial blur, and I'm going to make it a zoom blur. Now I might have to change this after the effect is over, because unfortunately with the zoom blur you can't preview it before it puts it in place. So I think I'm just going to set it at 13 for now. I actually think I like that a lot. So you can kind of see the before and after. It just makes it look cool. I think I'm also going to bring down this opacity so the sharpness comes back. So it's subtle, but it still looks cool. I'm also, just in case I find something else I like better, I'm just gonna check the other blending modes. The last thing I'm gonna do is I think I'm just gonna bring back some of the green in the shadows. So I'm gonna go to my curves here. I'm gonna go to the green curve, lay some points, and just screw with it until I see something I like. Okay, I think I like that. So that's it. That's something else I do. So I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna find a few images to do that same kind of thing too. Okay, so off camera I was doing a little bit of fiddling and I wanted to explain something that I just came up with. So I have my usual picture. Oh, gotta bring this back up. So I have my picture and this is the original picture with the textures that I've been using for this set. But this picture is very like light and airy and I kind of wanted to play on that. So here's what I did. I duplicated a second picture under it and I did a motion blur going one way and I used a color dodge effect. I duplicated the original picture again and brought it under and did another motion blur going the opposite direction. Now you can kind of see these like light streaks coming in and out, in and out. And I really like that, and I also really like how intensely bright it is. Now to make the picture more visible, I played with the different blending modes with each of the layers, and I also brought in a curve so I can bring in some of those blacks back, and this is the end point that I got. Again, a lot of what I do is the same process, but just different minimal touches to make different visuals, and this is one of those things where like it's not something that I expected to do, and this definitely probably won't go to my publication, but this is a picture that I really like, and I might use somehow in a different way on one of my socials. So I really fuck with this picture. Okay, so it is much later. It's like 3 hours later, and I've done a couple things since I have last spoken to you. I have finished all of my caffeinated beverages, which I'm really upset about because I'm not drinking anymore today. I sent everything that needs to be sent to my editors, which means just my regular plain images and then also my blurb that goes to my magazine. So everything on the external side is done. Now all I have to do is just make what I want to post on my feed. So that leads us here to our carousel. So right now this looks like a lot has been done, but I promise you it's not much. So what I've done is I've taken all of the images that I want to showcase and I've just started laying them out on the carousel. I haven't been doing this in any rhyme or reason so far. I've just been kind of laying pictures where I think it looks good, where the colors are cohesive. I've been laying images where the color looks cohesive, if they are like similar in composition, or if it's like a horizontal picture like this, I'm gonna use two boxes to show them off and then figure out what I need to do with the negative space. So I also designed the title. I'm not completely done with it yet. I do want to do some fiddling, but I kind of want to walk through how I made this situation. So this is what I have to start with. I have my main image that I wanted to show This is my favorite image, if you couldn't tell. And then these two, they are similar, and I wanted to show them off together so it didn't look like duplicate images as you kept going through the carousel. So I wanted to show that yes, these are different, and I like them both for different reasons. So the first thing that I wanted to do was blend all of the images together. So you can see here on the lining of these two images, I added I added an outer glow to each of these using the layer styles. You can see them here. And these are the settings that I used for the outer glow on both of those. I then blended the images together using opacity, radial, gradient, rectangles. So the first one I did is on the main one. You can see that effect here, before and after. I also did one on each of the two smaller images, here and here. So now you can kind of see that all of the images roughly blend together, but it still looks kind of splotchy, in my opinion. So we're gonna keep working through that. I added a curve to bring back some of that lightness. I feel like with those really dark grains, you lost some of that kind of like gray black that I had in the original images. So I brought some of that back. I then decided to bring back those textures that I had on the original images. I decided to delete them on the originals, so I just have one texture on this entire artboard, so they all blend together and they weren't in different sizes, so I did that. Now my gray blacks are back. Now to add some detail, I found this like star texture on Google. So I made them red, the kind of red that's over here, and I made them in some of the black, so it kind of looks a little dirty, but in a kind of like sparkly way. I want to add some more stars, but I haven't gotten to that part yet. And then the last thing I've done is add text. Where is my text? Here's my text. Okay, so this is the first piece of text that I added. Heaven is a place where you are. That's title of the album that they're touring. I made it red, the same red that's in the stars that's over here that I really like. I also made it lean a little bit, and the way that I did that is I hit command and then I press this button and it allows me to drag it however I want. So I made it slant a little bit along the lines of this metal thing. And then in the same way that I did the pictures where I use a lightning blending mode and then I blur the duplicate of it behind it, I did that for my text. And now you can see it kind of has a like burned into the image look to it. And I think that looks really nice. It really looks blended into this situation that I have going on. So that's what I have so far. I'm gonna work off screen in a speed up version of this and keep chugging along. This is the same kind of framework that I'm gonna keep going, just basically blending the images together, adding overlays to it, maybe some text, and messing around with the textures and stuff. So I'm gonna keep doing that. I hope you enjoy looking at my process. much later. It's about an hour and a half later, and I feel like I'm officially done. I was afraid of doing too much just because I want the pictures to be the spotlight. I don't want this to be a graphic design piece. I want this to be about the pictures that I took. However, I feel like I did just enough. I'm gonna throw up the final proofs here. And I want to bring attention to some of my favorite moments of the whole thing that really make up this piece. So first off, I'm just so obsessed with this first picture that I took. I love the bright whites. I love bright whites in pictures. And I like that the way that I edited it with the motion blur really pulls you in, because it's not often where you see a lot of bright whites in concert photography. It's in the dark, so obviously there's not going to be a lot of white, so I really love that. I also really liked the burned text throughout. I think it adds to that collage sense, especially here. I like juxtaposition in the silhouette of this piece. I like this part, and I like the fact that it looks like it's in a fisheye lens. That was completely unintentional, but when I did it, it just really worked. I really like that there was a mixture of wide shots and really detailed shots. I wanted a detailed shot, especially of Jansen's outfit, because I thought it was really visually interesting. So I had to include that here. I love the coloring. Something that's really important to me is good coloring in images. And I'm very peculiar about the coloring. And I think this green is really pretty. I think all of the colors look pretty cohesive, or at least to me they do. This isn't a usual timeline that I follow, but again, because being creative isn't my full-time gig, a lot of other things get in the way, like having a job and getting violently ill and other things along that line. However, I hope you liked hearing about my process, both externally working with a magazine and with bands themselves, and then also kind of how that external media gets transformed into like the style that I like and things that I like to post on my personal socials, because I feel like what you've seen before Photoshop and after Photoshop have a really big difference. But thank you for watching. If you have any suggestions, or if you have anything that you'd like to say about my work, I really like talking about art, so even if it's mean, feel free to let me know what you think. Not only am I looking to collaborate and discuss art, I'm completely open to constructive criticism. I really appreciate living in a time where my art can be so easily accessible by anyone, unfiltered. So go make stuff. Have so much fun. And if you use any of the things that I use, definitely let me know, because I feel like some of the things that I use are so easy to implement, but really elevate your work. And that's what I love about concert photography. So I'm really tired, and I'm going to go rest because I'm still sick. I'm going to go sleep. So